There was a shoe in my trunk. Just one. It was nude-colored, high-heeled, with a red scuff on the sole. Not my wife's style. Hers were always black, flat, and practical. The kind of shoes you wear when you're confident you won't be chased. I stared at it for a good 10 seconds before I even remembered why I was in the trunk. I was looking for the jumper cables. Not secrets. But there it was, staring back at me like a punchline. And suddenly the past 3 weeks began replaying in my head in reverse. The late-night texts, the spritz of perfume before grocery runs, the way she locked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. I carried the shoe inside. Didn't say anything. Just set it on the dining table like some cursed relic from a dream I didn't remember having. She came in 10 minutes later, holding 2 iced lattes. One for her, one for me. I took it. I smiled. Lose something? I asked, gesturing to the shoe. She froze. Just like that, her whole body locked. She looked at it like it had grown teeth. Then she laughed. But it wasn't real. It was the kind of laugh people do when they're deciding whether to run or lie. Oh my God, she said. How did that? That's Breeze. Yeah, we used my car when we went to the spa last Sunday. I nodded slowly. I didn't say a word. Didn't blink. Just watched. And that's when it happened. A twitch. Not a flinch. Not a gasp. A twitch. The corner of her lip pulled in, and she bit down like something in her mouth was threatening to escape. Words, maybe. A confession. Or panic. I took a sip of the latte. It was the wrong order. I hate almond milk. Good luck on your date, I said softly. Her hand jerked, and the cup tipped, coffee spilling across the floor. But it was her face, not the stain, that said everything. Let me know when to continue with part 2, and I'll follow this tone exactly. Mysterious, tense, filled with dread, and still YouTube-friendly. She didn't clean up the spill. That's how I knew she was unraveling. Kendra, my wife, the woman who once cried when I washed her favorite sweater on warm instead of cold, was just standing there, staring at the coffee on the floor like it was radioactive. Her hand still hovered midair, gripping the edge of the counter as if it might float away without her. I didn't move either. I just kept sipping the drink she brought me. The wrong one, of course, while the silence thickened between us like smoke. Somewhere in the background, the fridge hummed, oblivious. Why would you say that? She finally asked, voice tight. About a date? Her tone was all wrong. She wasn't offended. She was testing the water, like someone checking how much truth you already knew before deciding how big the lie should be. I shrugged. It was just a joke. You seemed surprised to see the shoe. She opened her mouth to respond, then stopped. Changed course. Picked up a paper towel like she was trying to restart the world with small, domestic motions. Dabbed at the coffee without looking up. That's when I noticed it. A tiny red smudge under her ear. Lipstick. Not hers. Kendra never wore red. She thought it made her look too sharp. Her words, not mine. But someone had kissed her. Recently. And their aim had been a little off. I should have said something right then. Demanded answers. Yelled, even. But instead, I just stood there feeling like a background character in my own marriage. Like if I stayed still long enough, maybe the truth would tell itself. Later that night, I pretended to fall asleep on the couch. I watched her from beneath the edge of the blanket as she paced the hallway, phone in hand, whispering urgently. I couldn't make out the words. Just the rhythm. Like waves breaking against the lie she was building. At 11:43 p.m., she grabbed her keys and slipped out the front door. I waited 2 minutes. Then I grabbed my hoodie, my wallet, and followed. I wasn't even trying to be sneaky. I didn't need to. She was too distracted, too sure I was asleep, too wrapped in whatever story she was living without me. I trailed her car from 5 cars back, heart pounding in a slow, sick rhythm. She drove across town, past the grocery store, past her so-called friend Brianna's apartment. And then, she turned into a dimly lit street I'd never seen her take before. Industrial. Forgotten. She parked behind a building with no sign. Just an unlit door and a row of blacked-out windows. I stopped half a block away and killed the engine. She got out, checked her reflection in the side mirror, then knocked once on the metal door. It opened instantly, and someone pulled her inside. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. But in that moment, something inside me collapsed. Not just trust. Not just love. Something deeper. And all I could think was, who kisses their wife with someone else's lipstick on them? I know what you're thinking. I should have driven away. Called a friend. Slept at a motel. Done anything except what I did. But that's not how betrayal works. When someone you love opens a door you weren't meant to see, you can't look away. Not when you've sacrificed years for them. Not when you gave them every version of yourself. Even the parts you should have kept. You follow. You stay. You ruin yourself for the truth. So I got out of the car. The pavement was wet, not from rain, but from a leak in the overhead gutter that dripped steadily onto the back of my neck. Cold, reminding me I was alive, and that something was about to change forever. I stayed close to the shadows, making my way toward the side of the building. No lights, no signs, just rusted siding and the smell of old oil and cigarette smoke. I wasn't dressed for this. My sneakers squeaked. My hands shook. I felt like a coward pretending to be a detective. But I had to see. At the corner of the building, I found a window, cracked just enough for sound to leak through. I crouched. I listened. At first, all I could hear was murmuring. Two voices. Hers and his. Male. Confident. Too confident. Not in a flirtatious way, more in a familiar way. Like they had a rhythm. Like this had happened before. Then I heard it. My name. She said it. Softly. Anxiously. Elwood can't know. That sentence landed like a punch to the throat. Not just because it confirmed everything, but because of the way she said it. Not with guilt. With fear. I pressed my ear closer to the glass. Relax, the man said. He's a ghost in his own life. You said it yourself. She didn't respond right away. I imagined her biting her lip, doing that thing where she twists her wedding ring when she's nervous. Only this time, the ring was probably off. It's getting harder, she whispered. He watches me like he knows something. The man laughed. A short, sharp sound. Then maybe it's time to finish this. Finish what? I didn't know what that meant, but my stomach turned inside out. It wasn't just cheating. It was something else. Bigger. Worse. I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to burst through the door, scream, demand answers. But I didn't. I backed away slowly, like the ground itself might give out beneath me. I stumbled back to my car, numb, headlights off, heart in my throat. When I got home, I sat in the driveway for an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, holding her spare earring in one hand and my phone in the other, scrolling through old photos like they belonged to someone else's life. And that's when a message lit up my screen. Unknown number. Did she tell you yet? Did she tell you yet? That was it. No name. No signature. Just those 5 words glowing against my screen like a burning brand. My hand tightened around the phone, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Who even was this? One of her friends? The man from the warehouse? Someone watching us both? I typed back. Who is this? No response. I typed again. What are you talking about? Nothing. I stared at the screen until the text thread blurred. My reflection in the glass was pale, distorted, like I didn't recognize myself anymore. I'd left home as a husband. I came back as what? A suspect? A joke? A pawn in someone else's game? I finally stepped inside. The house was silent. She was in bed, curled up like she hadn't just come back from a building with no name and a man who wanted me erased. She looked peaceful, too peaceful, as if nothing had ever happened. I watched her sleep. I shouldn't have, I know how that sounds, but I needed to see her like that one more time, to remember what it felt like to believe in her. And then I noticed her phone, on the nightstand, unlocked. She must have been too tired to remember. I moved slowly, my breath shallow, fingers shaking as I picked it up. I didn't go to the messages. I didn't need to. There was already a notification waiting. Encrypted Vault updated. That was a password manager app. But she never used it. At least, not that I knew of. And it was locked behind Face ID. I stared at it, heart pounding. She stirred. I froze. Then slowly, I turned the screen toward her sleeping face. It unlocked. I went in. There were folders. Lots of them. Most were empty, decoys. But one caught my eye. It was labeled History Project. That was weird. She wasn't in school. She hadn't been since her short community college phase 5 years ago. I tapped it. Inside were PDFs, image files, even audio clips. The first thing I opened was a scanned document, a lease. Not ours. Her name. Another man's name. Joint signature. It was dated 6 months ago. I opened another file. A screenshot of a bank transfer. $3,000 wired out every month from an account I didn't even know she had. Then I tapped on a photo. It was her. Laughing. In a kitchen I'd never seen. Wearing pajamas I'd never touched. Her arm around a man I'd never met. The same one from the warehouse. They looked married. I nearly dropped the phone. I couldn't feel my legs. My hands were ice. My throat had that tight, dry ache you get just before your body decides it's time to scream. But I didn't scream. I backed away. I left the room. I sat on the bathroom floor with the lights off and the fan humming just loud enough to drown out the thoughts racing through my head. I thought it was cheating. I thought she was just seeing someone. But this wasn't an affair. It was a double life. And I had no idea which version of me she needed gone first. I didn't sleep that night. Not even close. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the hours until she'd get up and pretend to be my wife again. The version that kissed my forehead before work and asked if we were out of almond milk. That version disgusted me now, because I knew she could shapeshift. And she'd been doing it for months, maybe years. Without a blink. At 5:14 a.m., I got out of bed and went for a drive. No destination. Just motion. I needed the road under my tires and the wind clawing at the cracks in my sanity. The sun was still buried below the horizon, and the streets were empty, like the world was holding its breath. But the truth kept screaming. I didn't even remember turning into the strip of businesses until I saw it. The big blue banner that read Safe Keep Storage in faded block letters. I don't know what made me stop. Maybe it was luck. Maybe something deeper. But I pulled in. I sat there for a full 5 minutes before I realized I'd seen the name somewhere. In one of the files. A rental statement. I opened her photo again. The lease. The address was here. Unit 233B. I got out. The air smelled like wet cardboard and secrets. The gate was open, too early for staff, but I guess someone forgot to lock up. I walked past rows and rows of identical metal doors, each one a mystery box, until I reached 233B. Locked, of course, but taped beside the latch was a spare key in a magnetic box. Amateur mistake. I hesitated. Once I opened this, I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't tell myself I misunderstood. That this was about bills or inheritance or whatever fiction I was clinging to. I unlocked it. The door screeched as it rolled upward, and what I saw made me stumble back. Inside were boxes. Not moving boxes. Wooden crates. Labeled, sealed, numbered. And a table. On that table, my handwriting. Dozens of pages from my journals. Pages I'd written over the years. Stuff I didn't even remember she'd read. Some of them were marked up. Annotated. Color-coded with little sticky tabs. Behind the table, pinned to the wall, was a massive corkboard. Strings. Photos. Maps. And at the very center, me. My face. Printed. Pinned. Surrounded by notes. There were bullet points underneath. Knows too much. Will ask questions soon. Plan B. Frame/isolate. My knees gave out. I sat on the cold floor, trying to figure out if I was awake. If this was some sick art project or performance piece or hallucination. Then I saw the folder. Bright yellow. Labeled Elwood Final. I opened it. Inside was a script. Not a legal one. Not an actual document. A script, like a screenplay. Title page. Closure. Final conversation. Draft 3. The lines were written like a play. Dialogue. Stage direction. It was my wife's handwriting. Kendra. Softly, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Elwood. You never meant to hurt me, right? Kendra. Sighs, that's what people always say before they do. Elwood. So what happens now? Kendra. Smiling faintly, you disappear. El quietly. That's how we both win. I dropped the folder. This wasn't just betrayal. It was orchestration. She wasn't cheating. She was scripting my erasure. I backed out of the unit, locked it, and ran to my car, heart pounding like it was trying to break free from my chest. As I turned the key in the ignition, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Check your back seat. I turned around so fast I knocked over my own coffee. There it was, sitting dead center on the back seat like it had been placed there deliberately. A cheap burner phone, the kind drug dealers use in movies and paranoid people actually use in real life. My brain struggled to process it. I'd locked my car. I was sure of it. Had I? Did I? My hands were shaking as I reached for it. No passcode. No wallpaper. Just one app. Messages. One thread. Unknown. You weren't supposed to find the unit yet. Unknown. They're moving faster now. She's scared. Unknown. That's when she's most dangerous. I stared at those messages like they were written in another language. Was someone helping me? Warning me? Manipulating me? My mind raced through every possible name. A coworker? Her sister? Some ex-friend trying to stir chaos? Another text arrived. Unknown. You have 48 hours to disappear. where she won't need a script. I dropped the phone. That's when I realized what was happening. This wasn't just a secret affair. This wasn't even just a second life. This was a countdown. And I was the finish line. I should have gone to the police. I know that now. But you don't think clearly when your entire reality is cracking like a windshield hit by a bullet. You think in fragments. You think in instincts. I drove. Fast. No destination again, just away. I turned off my real phone, battery pulled, just in case. I threw the burner in the nearest trash can behind a diner and sat in a parking lot for what felt like hours, trying to remember who I used to be before this woman rewrote my life like it was her personal screenplay. And I remembered something. A cabin. Years ago, we rented one for our 3rd anniversary. No Wi-Fi, no signal, just trees, a dusty fireplace, and a lake so still it looked painted. She hated it. Said it felt too quiet. Said she didn't like how her thoughts echoed there. I liked that cabin. It was under my name. A forgotten Airbnb that I'd booked directly from the owner to save fees. I checked. It was still listed. Still off the grid. I booked it. Under a fake name. No digital trail. Then I went home. When I stepped into the house, she was already in the kitchen, making breakfast like nothing had happened. Eggs. Toast. Fresh squeezed orange juice. The full performance. "Hey, babe," she said, not looking up. I stared at her. The woman who had a file named Elwood Final, who wrote scripts about my disappearance, who shared a bank account with a stranger and kept my journals pinned to a wall like a case study. I smiled. "I was thinking," I said, "maybe we should take a weekend trip. Just you and me." She blinked. Her hands froze on the plate. "Oh, where?" "That cabin. The one from years ago." There was a full beat of silence. Her eyes flicked up, just for a second, and I saw it. Panic. She recovered fast. Too fast. "I thought you hated that place." "I changed my mind," I said. She hesitated, then smiled. "Sure, that might be nice." We stood in silence. Both smiling. Both pretending. But only one of us knew what was really coming. Because I wasn't going there to relax. I was going to bait her. And this time, I'd be writing the final scene. The drive to the cabin was 4 hours. We didn't speak for the first 2. She sat beside me, scrolling her phone in silence, pretending everything was fine. I watched her reflection in the window, still, composed, but her jaw tightened every time we hit a bump. Her right thumb kept brushing her wedding ring. Not out of affection, out of calculation. That was her tell. She was doing math in her head. I kept my voice soft, my face neutral. I didn't ask where she'd been the night before. I didn't mention the burner phone, the storage unit, the script. I just smiled like the husband she thought she'd buried months ago. "This will be good for us," I said at one point. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, fresh air. Quiet." She hated quiet. The cabin looked exactly like I remembered. Weather-worn, isolated, the kind of place where the wind whistles through the trees like it's trying to whisper secrets. No neighbors. No cameras. No cell service. Just us, the forest, and all the lies we hadn't said out loud yet. Inside, everything smelled like dust and pine. I lit the fireplace to cut the chill and made dinner. A simple pasta. She complimented it like she used to, but her eyes kept darting to the windows. Like she was expecting someone, or watching for an exit. That night, I didn't sleep. She pretended to. I lay there, eyes open, listening to her breathing. Too even to be real. Every hour, I checked the hallway. The front door. The drawer under the sink, where I'd hidden the voice recorder. It was still rolling, silently capturing every sound, every whisper. At 3:11 a.m., she got up. Barefoot. Quiet. She tiptoed into the living room and pulled out her phone. No signal, of course, but she opened her notes app and typed something frantically. I inched forward, staying in the shadows of the hallway, heart pounding like war drums in my chest. She took a photo of her message and saved it. Then she opened the camera roll. She wasn't looking at our photos. She was looking at him. The man from the storage lease. I finally had a name now, Caleb. His name was tagged in the lease's metadata. And judging by the pictures she scrolled through, this wasn't a fling. This was home to her. She sat on the couch, clutching the phone to her chest like it was sacred. And then, barely audible, she whispered, just a little longer. "I'll fix this." Fix what? Me? Or the mess I'd stumbled into? The next morning, I pretended not to know anything. I made coffee, asked if she wanted to take a walk near the lake. She nodded, said she'd love that. said it like a line she was reading from memory. We walked down the trail behind the cabin, boots crunching on frost-covered leaves. The lake was still half frozen, mist curling off the surface like breath from a dying animal. She stopped, turned to me. "Elwood," she said, her voice gentle but tight. "If something ever happened to me, would you believe it was an accident?" The question caught me off guard. Not because of what she said, but because of what I saw in her eyes. She looked afraid. Not of me, of whatever was coming next. "I don't believe in accidents anymore," I said quietly. And that's when her face changed. She realized I wasn't the same man she left behind. The game had flipped, and she'd walked straight into my version of the script. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to accuse her of anything. All I had to do was wait, because she'd already begun to unravel. She confessed that night, not in one dramatic outburst, not in tears, not with a single apology. It came out in fragments, like broken glass shaken from a box. We were sitting by the fire. She had that blank look again, like a person trying to decide which version of the truth would hurt least. "Elle," she said softly, "you were always too easy to love. Too easy." That's how she described me. Like loving me was a reflex, a placeholder, a calm before whatever chaos she thought she deserved. She said she met Caleb at a volunteer retreat, said it started as nothing. But then she laughed when she said that, because we both knew it had never been nothing. "He offered me something exciting," she whispered. "Something sharp. I wanted to feel real again. And I didn't. I was real every morning I made her tea. I was real when I stayed late at work so she could chase her side projects. I was real every time I looked the other way when the excuses didn't add up. But I didn't say any of that. I let her speak. Let her unload every ugly word into the air between us. And when she was done, when there were no more rationalizations or justifications left to give, she finally asked the question she'd been circling all weekend. "So what happens now?" I looked her dead in the eye. I already packed my things. Her breath caught. For a split second, her confidence cracked. Not because she didn't expect this, but because I said it calmly. Like I wasn't begging. Like I wasn't broken. Like I was already gone. I stood, walked to the bedroom, picked up my bag, slipped the recorder out from under the sink. It had everything. Her admissions, her plan, her fear. I didn't need it for court. I didn't need it for revenge. I just needed it for myself, to prove I hadn't imagined any of it. Before I walked out the door, she said one last thing. "Elwood, I didn't think you'd actually leave." I turned back only once. "I know," I said. "That was your mistake." The air outside was cold, but it felt clean. I didn't look back. 3 months later, I signed the divorce papers without a single word exchanged. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, just quiet. Mine. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since before we met. Short essays, then longer stories. Eventually, one of them got published in a local magazine. They asked if I'd ever considered turning it into a book. I told them, actually, I've already lived the ending. And now? Now I sleep well. No more burner phones. No more late-night whispers. No more second-guessing whether love should feel like walking on eggshells. Sometimes peace isn't dramatic. It's just freedom. And freedom, I've learned, is the best revenge of all.